My name is Elena Vasquez, and for the past 3 years, I've been completely invisible. That's exactly how I wanted it.at34, I've perfected the art of blending into the background. Average height, unremarkable brown hair usually pulled into a simple ponytail, clothes from Target that scream, suburban mom on a budget. I work as a night security guard at the Riverside Convention Center in Sacramento, making $16.50 an hour watching empty hallways through grainy security monitors. My coworkers call me Mouse because I barely speak above a whisper and eat lunch alone in the break room, always with a paperback romance novel propped against my thermos. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. What they don't know, what nobody knows, is that I spent 8 years as a combat controller in the Air Force Special Operations Command. USAF Pararescue. That others may live. I've jumped out of planes at 30,000 feet, coordinated airstrikes in hostile territory, and pulled wounded soldiers from burning helicopters in Afghanistan and Iraq. My real name isn't even Elena Vasquez, it's Lieutenant Colonel Rebecca Martinez, retired, with a Purple Heart and a Silver Star collecting dust in a storage unit across town, but Rebecca Martinez died 3 years ago. Officially, at least the morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday in October. I clocked in at 6 a.m., nodded to Jerry at the front desk, and settled into my routine. Coffee from the vending machine, black, no sugar, and a systematic check of all entry points. The convention center was hosting the Western States Clean Energy Summit, which meant 3 days of politicians, environmental activists, and corporate executives pretending to care about solar panels and wind farms. Governor Patricia Kelman was scheduled to give the keynote address that afternoon. I'd seen her photo in the briefing materials, 50s, silver hair, the kind of polished confidence that comes from decades in public service. She'd served 2 terms as a senator before running for governor, known for her work on renewable energy legislation and veteran affairs. Ironic, considering a veteran was about to save her life. The first sign of trouble came at 9:47 a.m. I was monitoring camera 7, watching maintenance crews set up the main auditorium, when I noticed something that made my combat-trained instincts twitch. One of the maintenance workers was moving wrong. Too purposeful, too aware of his surroundings. His coveralls were clean, suspiciously clean for someone supposedly fixing HVAC units. Most tellingly, he kept checking the exits and glancing at the VIP entrance where the governor's security detail would later position themselves. I switched to camera 12, following his movement. He was carrying a standard tool bag, but the way he held it suggested it contained more than wrenches and screwdrivers. His body language screamed military training, the way he checked corners, the efficient economy of his movements, the constant situational awareness that comes from months in hostile territory. My pulse quickened, muscle memory flooding back. In Afghanistan, this kind of behavior from a supposed civilian meant one thing, imminent threat. I reached for my radio, then hesitated. What was I going to tell them? That some maintenance guy looked suspicious? That my women's intuition was acting up? Jerry and the other guards already thought I was weird. This would just confirm their suspicions that the quiet night shift lady was slowly losing her mind. Instead, I kept watching, preparing and narrating. This story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. At 10:23 a.m., the fake maintenance worker met briefly with another man near the loading dock. The second man handed over what looked like building schematics, pointing to specific locations. They spoke for less than 30 seconds before separating, but it was enough. I recognized the body language, the quick, professional exchange. This wasn't a repair job, this was reconnaissance for an operation. My hands started shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline surge that used to precede every mission. For 3 years, I'd suppressed every instinct that made me good at my job, burying Rebecca Martinez so deep that Elena Vasquez could live a quiet, anonymous life. Now those instincts were screaming at me to act, but act how? Call the FBI and tell them that the dead war hero Rebecca Martinez was actually alive and working security at a convention center? Explain that I'd faked my death to escape the nightmares, the PTSD, the crushing weight of being a symbol instead of a person. I grabbed my security radio with trembling fingers. Jerry, this is Elena. I need to report suspicious activity in Sector 7. What kind of activity, Mouse? Jerry's voice crackled through the speaker, already dismissive. Two individuals conducting what appears to be surveillance of the building layout. One was dressed as maintenance but didn't follow standard safety protocols. Elena, honey, you've been watching too many action movies. It's maintenance day. Frank scheduled it weeks ago. I bit back my response. Frank, our day shift supervisor, had the security awareness of a goldfish. If someone told him they needed to check the plumbing, he'd hand them the master keys and ask if they wanted coffee. Copy that, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'll continue monitoring. The next 4 hours were torture. I tracked the suspicious individuals through the building's camera network, documenting their movements, their timing, their obvious familiarity with the layout. They identified every security camera, every exit, every potential choke point. This wasn't random violence, it was a professional operation with a specific target. The governor. At 2:15 p.m., the advanced security team arrived. Real Secret Service agents this time, along with Sacramento PD and the governor's personal detail. I watched them conduct their sweep, professional but routine, clearly not expecting any real threats at a clean energy conference. I made a decision that would change everything. I called in sick for the afternoon shift and clocked out early, but I didn't go home. Instead, I went to my storage unit and retrieved a duffel bag I hadn't opened in 3 years. Inside, my service weapon, a Sig Sauer P320, tactical gear. And most importantly, my combat controller badge and identification. Rebecca Martinez was about to come back from the dead. By 4 p.m., I was positioned in the parking garage across from the convention center's main entrance, watching through borrowed binoculars as the governor's motorcade arrived. 3 black SUVs, motorcycle escorts, the full protective detail. Governor Kelman emerged from the middle vehicle, waving to a small crowd of supporters and protesters who'd gathered behind the security barriers. She looked smaller in person, more vulnerable. In my mind, she'd been just another VIP to protect, another mission parameter. Seeing her interact with citizens, taking time to shake hands despite her security team's obvious discomfort, she became human. That's when I spotted him, the fake maintenance worker from this morning, now dressed in a catering uniform, pushing a service cart toward the convention center's kitchen entrance. The cart was too heavy for its contents, I could tell from the way he had to lean into it, the careful precision of his movements. Whatever was inside wasn't dinner rolls and coffee urns. I had 2 choices. Call the authorities and try to explain how a dead Air Force officer had uncovered an assassination plot, or handle it myself and hope I remembered how to be Rebecca Martinez. The choice was made for me when I saw the second man from this morning's meeting approaching from the opposite direction, carrying what was obviously a concealed weapon beneath his jacket. 2-man team, coordinated approach, professional timing. This was happening now. I grabbed my radio and switched to the emergency frequency. All units, this is Rebecca Martinez, former Air Force Special Operations. I have eyes on 2 suspects approaching the governor's location with what appears to be explosive devices and weapons. Requesting immediate backup. Static. Then Jerry's confused voice, Elena? What the hell are you talking about? Who's Rebecca Martinez? No time to explain. I was already moving, muscle memory taking over as I crossed the street toward the convention center. My combat training kicked in, assess the threat, neutralize the immediate danger, protect the principal. The first suspect had disappeared into the kitchen entrance. The second was still approaching the main entrance where the governor would exit after her speech. I had maybe 10 minutes before she finished and walked directly into their kill zone. I entered the building through the emergency exit I'd unlocked during my morning rounds, moving through corridors I knew by heart after 3 years of walking them every night. The kitchen was my first priority. If they had explosives, that was the most likely location for maximum damage. I found him at 4:47 p.m., kneeling beside his service cart in the empty prep kitchen, assembling what was clearly a sophisticated IED. Military-grade equipment, professional construction, timer already running. 7 minutes and 38 seconds. Step away from the device, I said, my service weapon trained on his center mass. He looked up, surprised but not panicked. Who are you supposed to be, lady? Building security? He had an accent, Eastern European, maybe Serbian. United States Air Force Special Operations Command, I replied, my voice carrying the authority I'd suppressed for 3 years. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit terrorism. He laughed and reached for his weapon. That was his mistake. I put 2 rounds center mass and 1 to the head before his gun cleared leather. Mozambique drill, executed perfectly after 3 years of rust. Muscle memory is a beautiful thing. The kitchen went silent except for the timer counting down, 6:23. 6:22, 6:21, I holster my weapon and approach the device. Basic timer-based IED, probably C4 or something similar, definitely enough to take out half the building. The timer mechanism was standard military issue, probably stolen from some overseas cache. I disarmed dozens of these in Iraq and Afghanistan. The trick was staying calm and remembering your training. Blue wire to positive, red to negative, yellow to ground. Cut the right sequence or everyone dies. 5:43. 5:42, 5:41, my hands were steady as I traced the wiring back to its source. 3 years of nightmares, 3 years of suppressing every instinct that made me who I was, and now it all came back like riding a bicycle. This was what I was born to do. 4:15. 4:14, 4:13, I found the primary trigger and the backup. Sophisticated work, but not sophisticated enough to fool someone who'd been doing this since she was 22. I cut the yellow wire first, then the blue, then held my breath as I severed the red. The timer stopped at 3:07. Elena? Elena, where are you? Jerry's voice echoed through my radio, panicked now. There are FBI agents here asking about Rebecca Martinez, and there's some kind of incident in the kitchen. I keyed the radio with shaking hands. This is Elena. I need you to evacuate the building immediately. The governor is in immediate danger. But even as I said it, I knew it was too late for a full evacuation. The second suspect was still out there, and Governor Kelman was scheduled to exit through the main entrance in less than 3 minutes. He'd have a clear shot at her. The moment she stepped outside, I grabbed the dead terrorist's radio and listened to the chatter. Russian, confirming my suspicions about foreign involvement. The second operative was in position and waiting for his partner's signal. When that signal didn't come, he'd either abort or improvise. Men like this don't abort. I ran through the corridors toward the main entrance, my mind automatically calculating angles, cover positions, and sight lines. The governor's security detail was good, but they weren't expecting a sniper attack from the parking garage across the street. They were positioned for close quarters threats, not long-range assassination attempts. I burst through the main doors. Just as Governor Kelman's speech ended and her security detail began their escort protocol. She was talking to an aide, relaxed and unaware that death was waiting for her in the form of a scope-mounted rifle 300 yards away. Get down! I shouted, drawing my weapon as I spotted the muzzle flash from the parking garage's third level. The first shot missed, shattering glass behind the governor's head as her security team reacted with professional speed, surrounding her and beginning their evacuation drill. But they were moving toward their vehicles, directly into the sniper's kill zone. The second shot took out one of the agents, dropping him with a chest wound that painted the concrete red. That's when Elena Vasquez disappeared forever, and Rebecca Martinez took control. I acquired the target in the parking garage and returned fire, my shots forcing the sniper to take cover behind a concrete pillar. Sniper, third-level parking garage. I shouted to the security team as I advanced toward their position. Get the governor to hard cover, now. The lead agent looked at me like I was insane, a woman in a security guard uniform giving orders to the Secret Service. But when my next 3 shots clustered within inches of each other at 300 yards, he started listening. Who are you? He demanded as his team finally moved the governor to proper cover behind their armored vehicles. Someone who's going to keep her alive, I replied, reloading without taking my eyes off the parking garage. But I need you to trust me for the next 5 minutes. The sniper had repositioned, trying to get an angle on the governor's new location. I tracked his movement through the garage levels, my mind automatically calculating bullet drop, wind resistance, and target acquisition times. This was what I was good at. This was what I'd been trained for. Rebecca Martinez, I said into my radio, knowing that every law enforcement agency in the country would hear it. Call sign Angel 7. I'm taking the shot. I found my position behind a concrete barrier and settled into a prone firing stance that felt like coming home. The sniper had made a mistake. He'd silhouetted himself against the garage's back wall, trying for a rushed shot at the governor's position. Range, 347 yards. Wind, negligible. Target, center mass on a hostile attempting to assassinate a United States government official. I controlled my breathing, found my natural respiratory pause, and gently squeezed the trigger. The sniper dropped. I in the sudden silence that followed, I could hear sirens approaching from every direction. FBI, ATF, probably half the law enforcement agencies in California converging on our location. In about 30 seconds, I was going to have a lot of explaining to do. Governor Kelman was alive. Her security detail was securing the scene. The immediate threat was neutralized. My job was done. I safed my weapon and stood up, raising my hands as the first FBI agents rounded the corner with weapons drawn. Behind them, I could see news vans arriving, cameras already rolling, reporters preparing to turn whatever had just happened into the day's headline story. "I'm Rebecca Martinez," I announced in a clear voice. "Former United States Air Force Special Operations. I just prevented an assassination attempt on Governor Kelman." The lead FBI agent stopped, his weapon still trained on me but his expression shifting from hostile to confused. "Rebecca Martinez has been dead for 3 years." I smiled. For the first time in years, feeling more like myself than I had since the day I faked my own death. That's what I wanted everyone to think. Turns out I'm harder to kill than I thought. As they cuffed me and read me my rights, I caught sight of Governor Kelman watching from behind her security barrier. Our eyes met across the chaos of the crime scene, and she mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." I nodded once, then let the agents lead me away. Elena Vasquez was gone forever, but Rebecca Martinez was back. And somehow, I had the feeling this was just the beginning of a much larger story. The quiet security guard who'd been invisible for 3 years had just saved a governor's life on live television. There was no going back to anonymity now, but for the first time in 3 years, I didn't want to. The FBI field office in Sacramento smelled like stale coffee and bureaucratic desperation. I'd been sitting in interview room 3 for 6 hours, still wearing my blood-stained security guard uniform, watching federal agents parade in and out like I was some kind of exotic zoo animal. Special Agent Diana Reeves finally walked in at 11:47 p.m., carrying a thick manila folder and the kind of exhausted expression that comes from having your entire case blown wide open by a dead woman. She was maybe 40, auburn hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, wearing a tailored suit that screamed, "I worked twice as hard as the men to get half the recognition." "Rebecca Martinez," she said, settling into the chair across from me. "Or do you prefer Elena Vasquez these days?" "Rebecca's fine," I replied. Elena was never real anyway. She opened the folder and spread out photographs, my military ID, commendation certificates, even a photo from my Medal of Honor ceremony that I'd hoped was buried forever. The woman had done her homework. According to these records, Lieutenant Colonel Rebecca Martinez died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan 3 years ago. Closed casket funeral, full military honors, buried in Arlington National Cemetery. She looked up from the photos. "Funny thing about that grave, when we had it open 2 hours ago, we found a coffin full of sand." I kept my expression neutral. "Must have been a paperwork error." "Right." Agent Reeves leaned back in her chair. "Here's what I think happened. You couldn't handle civilian life after your service. The nightmares, the PTSD, the pressure of being one of the first women in combat control. So you faked your death, assumed a new identity, and tried to disappear." She wasn't wrong, but she wasn't entirely right either. The truth was more complicated than government forms could capture. "You want to know why I died?" I asked quietly. "Because Rebecca Martinez was supposed to be a symbol. The perfect female. Warrior, proof that women could do anything men could do. Every interview, every photo op, every speech, I wasn't a person anymore. I was a political statement." The nightmares had started during my second tour in Afghanistan. Not from combat. I could handle being shot at. The breakdown came from constantly having to prove myself, to be twice as good as every man around me just to be considered equal. When I earned my Silver Star, the citation focused more on my gender than my actions. When I saved those Marines from the burning helicopter, The headlines read, "Woman Warrior Proves Her Worth," instead of "Soldier Saves Lives." I became a propaganda tool, I continued. Every decision was scrutinized, every mistake magnified. I couldn't even eat lunch without someone analyzing whether I was setting a good example for military women. So I died, because Rebecca Martinez. The symbol needed to die for Rebecca Martinez, the person to survive. Agent Reeves nodded slowly. And Elena Vasquez was your escape. Elena was invisible. She could eat lunch alone, read romance novels, live a quiet life without anyone expecting her to represent an entire gender. I met her eyes. Until today. Until today, she agreed. When you saved Governor Kelman's life on live television and blew your cover to hell. The full scope of my situation was becoming clear. My face was already on every news channel in the country. Mysterious security guard saves governor's life. Within hours, someone would connect Elena Vasquez to Rebecca Martinez, and my 3 years of anonymity would become a footnote in someone else's story. Tell me about the assassination attempt, Agent Reeves said, switching gears. 2 operatives, professional equipment, foreign accents. This wasn't some domestic extremist group. I described everything: the surveillance, the fake maintenance workers, the sophisticated IED, the coordinated sniper attack. As I talked, I could see the implications dawning on her face. This wasn't an isolated incident. The bomb was designed to take out the building's main support structure, I explained. Maximum casualties, maximum psychological impact. The sniper was back up, positioned to kill the governor if she survived the explosion. This was state-sponsored terrorism. Which state? I shrugged. The radio chatter was Russian, but that doesn't mean much. Could be mercenaries, could be false flag operation. What matters is someone wanted Governor Kelman dead badly enough to risk an international incident. Agent Reeves made notes in her file. The governor's been pushing hard for renewable energy legislation, cutting into a lot of oil and gas profits. Could be economic motivation. Or political, I added. She's been mentioned as a potential presidential candidate. Taking her out now eliminates a future threat. The door opened and a tall man in an expensive suit walked in, carrying himself with the kind of casual authority that screamed high-level government official. Agent Reeves immediately straightened, which told me everything I needed to know about his position in the food chain. "Ms. Martinez," he said, taking the remaining chair. "I'm Deputy Director James Morrison, Homeland Security. We need to talk." He dismissed Agent Reeves with a nod, waiting until she left before pulling out his own folder. This one was thicker, with classifications marked on every page. "What you stopped today wasn't an isolated attack," he began without preamble. "We've been tracking a series of assassination attempts targeting state governors who support renewable energy legislation. Governor Kelman was the 4th target. The first 3 were unsuccessful, but they're getting more sophisticated." He showed me photographs from the other attempts: a car bomb in Denver that missed the Colorado governor by 30 minutes, a poisoning attempt in Oregon that was discovered before the governor consumed the contaminated water, a sniper attack in Nevada that failed when the governor changed his schedule at the last minute. Someone's trying to eliminate political support for clean energy at the state level, I realized. Take out enough governors, and you cripple the movement. Exactly. And whoever's behind it has unlimited resources and professional operators. The kind of people who can make decorated war heroes disappear and create new identities. He fixed me with a steady stare. "People like you." The implication hung heavy between us. "You think I'm involved? I think you're either the most conveniently placed security guard in history, or you're part of a deeper operation." He leaned forward. "Elena Vasquez's background is perfect. Too perfect. Clean credit history, unremarkable employment record. No criminal background. It's exactly the kind of legend a professional would create." My temper flared, the first real emotion I'd felt since the adrenaline wore off. "You think I spent 3 years working night security for $16 an hour as part of some elaborate cover story? That I killed my own identity, gave up everything I'd worked for, just to position myself as a sleeper agent? I think someone with your skills doesn't just disappear unless they're running from something. Or running toward something." He wasn't entirely wrong. The truth was more complicated than either explanation. "I was recruited," I admitted quietly. Not by whoever's behind these attacks. By someone trying to stop them. Morrison's expression didn't change, but I could see the intensity in his eyes. Explain. 3 months after I died, I was contacted by a man calling himself Victor. No last name, no agency affiliation, but he knew things about my military service that weren't in any file. He knew about operations that were classified above my clearance level. Victor had approached me at a coffee shop in Portland, where I was working under a different identity while establishing Elena Vasquez's background. Average height, unremarkable appearance, the kind of man you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. But his eyes held the weight of someone who'd seen too much classified information. He told me there was a shadow war being fought in the halls of power, I continued. Corporate interests using foreign assets to eliminate political opponents. Assassination disguised as terrorism, terrorism disguised as domestic unrest. He said people like me, people who were officially dead, were the only ones who could operate in the spaces between agencies. And you believed him? I didn't have much choice. Elena Vasquez needed a job, and he offered one that came with bulletproof documentation and a steady paycheck. I met Morrison's gaze. He placed me at the convention center 6 months ago, said I should watch for unusual activity around high-profile events. Did he tell you about the assassination attempt today? No. That was just good timing and better training. I leaned back in my chair. But I'm betting he'll contact me again soon. People like Victor don't waste assets. Morrison closed his folder. And stood up. Here's what's going to happen. Officially, Elena Vasquez prevented an assassination attempt and is being held as a material witness. Unofficially, Rebecca Martinez just became our best lead in a domestic terrorism investigation. And if I refuse to cooperate? Then Rebecca Martinez goes to federal prison for faking her death, identity fraud, and weapons violations. Elena Vasquez disappears into the witness protection program, and whoever Victor really is continues operating in the shadows. He paused at the door. Your choice. After he left, I sat alone with my thoughts for the first time since the shooting. 3 years of carefully constructed anonymity destroyed in 30 seconds of gunfire. 3 years of suppressing every instinct that made me who I was, only to discover that someone had been manipulating my new life from the beginning. Elena Vasquez had been a lie. But then again, so had Rebecca Martinez, the war hero. The real truth was somewhere in between, a woman who was good at violence trying to find a way to live with that fact. The door opened again, and Agent Reeves returned with a cup of coffee and an apologetic expression. Sorry about Morrison. He sees conspiracies everywhere. Maybe because they're everywhere, I replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. Maybe. But for what it's worth, I believe you. The Rebecca Martinez I read about wouldn't fake her death for money or glory. She'd do it because she was tired of carrying everyone else's expectations. I looked at her more carefully. You sound like you speak from experience. First woman to lead a counterterrorism unit in the Sacramento field office, she said with a bitter smile. Every case I solve is either because I got lucky or because some man really did the work. Every case I miss is proof that women aren't cut out for the job. Sound familiar? It did. More familiar than I wanted to admit. So what happens now? I asked. Now you help us catch the people who tried to kill Governor Kelman. And maybe, if we're very lucky, we figure out who Victor really is and what game he's been playing. She pulled out a secure phone and placed it on the table. This belonged to the sniper you killed. We cracked the encryption an hour ago. Want to see who he was talking to? The phone displayed a series of text messages, all in English but using coded language that suggested professional training. The last message, sent 30 minutes before the attack, was the most interesting. Package delivered. Eagle and Nest. Proceed with timeline. Eagle, I said thoughtfully. Military designation for high-value target. They were specifically targeting Governor Kelman. But look at this, Agent Reeves scrolled to an earlier message. Target acquisition. Confirmed. Asset in place. Proceed to phase 2. Asset in place. I felt a chill run down my spine. They knew I was there. They knew Elena Vasquez was working security. Which means either you're part of their operation, or someone wanted you to be there when it happened. She made my ice. Someone wanted you to save the governor's life. The implications were staggering. If Victor had placed me at the convention, Sent her specifically to prevent this assassination. It meant he had advanced knowledge of the attack. Which meant he was either involved with the conspirators or monitoring them closely enough to predict their moves. I need to contact Victor, I said. How? He gave me an emergency number. Said to use it only if Elena Vasquez was compromised. I managed a grim smile. I'd say having my face on every news channel in the country qualifies. Agent Reeves handed me her phone. Make the call. We'll trace it. I dialed the number from memory, expecting to reach an answering service or a deadline. Instead, Victor picked up on the first ring. Hello, Rebecca. I was wondering when you'd call. My cover's blown. The FBI has me in custody. You want to explain what the hell is going on? You did exactly what I hoped you would do. Saved the governor, exposed yourself, and forced the other side to show their hand. His voice was calm, almost pleased. Now we can move to the next phase. Which is? Governor Kelman is alive because of you. In 3 hours, she's going to hold a press conference announcing a joint federal-state task force to investigate the assassination attempts. You're going to be the face of that task force. I'm in federal custody, not anymore. Check your watch. I looked at my wrist automatically, then heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Agent Reeves stood up, her hand moving instinctively toward her weapon, but the door opened to reveal Morrison and 2 men in dark suits with government IDs. Rebecca Martinez, one of them said, "You're coming with us." On whose authority? Agent Reeves demanded. Presidential directive, Morrison replied, his expression unreadable. Ms. Martinez has been activated for a classified operation. As they escorted me from the building, I heard Victor's voice through the phone still clutched in my hand. Welcome back to the war, Rebecca. This time, we're fighting it in the shadows. Outside, a black SUV waited with the engine running. As we drove through the Sacramento night toward an uncertain future, I realized that Elena Vasquez's quiet life was truly over. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. The woman who had died to escape her responsibilities was about to discover that some duties follow you beyond the grave. Governor Kelman was alive, but the people who wanted her dead were still out there. And now they knew that Rebecca Martinez was alive too. The real war was just beginning. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.